McCarthy Insurance Group, serving the community for over 70 years. For home, farm, motor, life, health and business insurance, log on to mig.ie or free phone 1800 50 11 11. Probably your best call in 2024. Charles McCarthy Insurance is trading as McCarthy Insurance Group, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Real people, real opinions, Real Talk Radio. The multi-award-winning Niall Boylan Show.
That brings us on to our question tonight. And it is an unthinkable situation, really. I would say, truly most of the world is kind of horrified. But there are some people who are also wondering something which is also worth asking. Why do we care so much? We see boats of migrants, illegal immigrants, refugees, whatever you want to call those human beings, capsize regularly near the Mediterranean, and all those on board drowning. It's irrelevant what you think, by the way, of the immigration crisis. It's irrelevant what you think of refugees migrating around the world. That's all irrelevant to the question I'm asking you. They're still human beings, whether you like them, whether you don't like them. It's kind of all irrelevant. They're still human beings. And today we received a Facebook message saying that, just that from Paula in Galway. And she said what I think a lot of people are wondering, including, by the way, Vincent Brown, who's tweeted about it at the moment. And it says, Niall, I get that what is happening to these 5 rich people is awful, and I shudder to think about it. But why don't we care like this when it comes to refugees? Honestly, why? All that money spent, and by the way, she mentions the money. I heard an estimate today of over $6 billion so far has been spent in relation to this particular rescue. That was the figure I heard today. $6 billion is the cost. I mean, the possible cost. If you put everything that's been even donated for free and value it, it's about $6 billion. Man hours, all that kind of stuff. Saving those people when so many people who have already faced such difficulty in their lives are showing judgment and contempt. I despair at the world today, I do. We are losing our humanity. It is because they are powerful and rich we believe their lives are worth more. Genuinely wondering what you think. And I've heard people talk. Somebody said to me today, actually, what they said to me was, "Oh, if they were black people, it would be different. We'd be ignoring it." And I said, "No, that's not the case at all. As far as I know, I don't even know what skin colour the people are that are in the capsule. They may all be white, but I don't think that's even a relevant factor. And I don't think that's the factor or a factor in why we seem to ignore what's happening in the Mediterranean sometimes. But I want to ask you, are some people's lives worth more than others? Should we be spending all this money saving these 5 people when it could be better spent on saving more people, fleeing war-torn countries, feeding starving people across the world? Or is that just a silly notion to suggest that? Why is this particular thing getting so much attention? Why? I mean, the whole world is watching this. There's hourly updates on the news. It's 5 people. Hundreds of people die in an earthquake, and it's kind of forgotten about the next day. Hundreds of people die, or thousands of people die in tsunamis yearly. It's forgotten about the next day. It doesn't really get the coverage that this particular story is getting. It's trending on Twitter. It's trending on social media. It's on all the news stations. It's top story. Why? It is important, and I'm sure for the families of those 5 people, it's devastating. But why? Why do you think some people's lives are worth more than others? The number is 087 188 0008. Am I wrong or am I right? The number is 087 188 0008. Now let me go to Padraig. Padraig, how are you doing? You're on Ireland's Classic Hits Radio.
Greetings, Niall.
Greetings, Padraig.
Well, sir, all good in the hood.
Why do you think this story is getting so much attention?
Well, first of all, Niall, I think it's probably this is probably an ego trip that has gone wrong.
Well, for the rich and the wealthy.
Yeah. Well, my outlook on life, I'm sure it's the same as your own. That a road sweeper's a road sweeper's life is just as good as any prince or king anywhere in the world. I mean, at the end of the day, now we're all human.
Yeah, but we all don't get if the road sweeper, is in trouble, he's not going to be on Sky News. Where if the Prince or King is in trouble, he is going to be on Sky News.
I agree, Niall, and this is the sick, sad world that we live in.
Is it? Is it that it's intriguing? And somebody gave an analogy there today that if somebody told you, here's a book, it's about a man that died, you go, oh, okay. Yeah, he just died in a submarine. Oh, okay. Is he dead? Yeah, he's dead. You'd kind of go, all right, it's one chapter. But if somebody said to you, here's a book about 5 people who are still alive, but could probably die if they don't get them in time, you might find that more intriguing. That it's the intriguing aspect of this, that everybody is rooting for them. Is that what this is more about? Like, if it was a case that 5 people died in a submarine 3 days ago, should the story be gone now? It wouldn't even be in the news anymore.
Yeah, well, it's about the rich and powerful again, Niall, isn't it? Really, it's technologies, the rich and powerful, and apparently these 5 individuals pay 250 grand a pop for the privilege. And as regards to the demographics of the 5, that they were a Frenchman, an Englishman, a Scotchman, and apparently a Pakistani national with his son. That's the 5, apparently, you know.
Yep. Who would have had to pay $500,000 for him and his son. Yep.
Yes. But obviously money was no object. But look, Niall, they knew that the risks apparently were very high in this particular situation, apparently more dangerous than going to space, actually. So, I mean, why would you want to put yourself in this position? And now, with all these people trying to rescue these people, I mean, are they putting them in danger as well? Because I was listening to one of the networks last night, I think the Sky News, Niall, the presenter said to this, one of the intelligentsia, is this like looking for a needle in a haystack? And the guy said, no, it's even worse than looking for a needle in a haystack, you know?
Yeah. It's a vast stretch of ocean, and you've got this 3 or 4 meter submarine in the middle of nowhere. So they don't have no idea. It could be on the surface. If it's not on the surface, it's even worse. It's down below somewhere. It's 5 miles deep, 6 miles deep. Yeah.
Well, apparently, now a few sounds have been heard. I was just looking at the news there.
They don't even know how true that is.
No, I understand that, but the particular area that they're searching currently apparently is the size of Munster. So put that in perspective, you know.
Mm. Somebody else had the sounds that they heard were the SOS sounds. And now I don't know how true that is or whether that's just somebody fantasizing a little bit. But, you know, the kind of SOS. Would you, by the way, if you were in a situation like that, Patrick, would you know what how to do the SOS sound? I'm just curious. I'm actually curious now. Would you know what to say? You're in that submarine and they said, there's a hammer. There's the side of the metal. The only way they're going to hear us is if we make some noise because the sonic detectors might pick that up. Would you know how to do SOS?
I wouldn't have a breeze now, but then I would put myself in this position. Because why would you, even if these people are super wealthy, as my wife said, if I was offered $1 million yo-yos, I wouldn't go down there. The risks are, I just don't understand. These people, their families obviously are worried about them. But these are rich people, so they still have families. But it's not just about them. It's about families, extended families, and look, it really is. This has obviously gone wrong, and I really think, like I said, it's an ego trip that's gone wrong. Unfortunately, these people have more money than sense, and it looks as if it's not going to end very well, Niall.
Stay there a second, because Niamh, how are you doing?
How are you, Niall? How are you?
Good. Niamh, does it matter that they're rich? Because why is it getting so much tension? Is it because they're rich, or is it because it's intriguing? As I said already, you know, a few thousand people have died in the Mediterranean, fleeing countries and war and all sorts of things. And no matter what you happen to think about immigration or what your opinion is, they're still human beings. And that doesn't really get the news. We're kind of bored of that, aren't we?
Well, it's not reported on, in fairness. We're not given the chance to care, because it's not reported on. But I remember vividly, and I'm sure you do too, 2010, 33 Chilean miners. And we were glued to the screen for 33 days to see if they'd get out. And thank God they did. Mm-hmm. But they weren't rich. I'm sure Chilean miners aren't paid an awful lot. They weren't rich men. They weren't, but we watch that too. I think sometimes we forget things that we've seen, and we sort of go, oh yeah, God, yeah, I remember that. Because it's gone. As you say, it goes into the annals of history and we forget about it. But we watched those men, and thank God they were all brought out after 33 days. It was a miracle. And I think that's part of it. We live in such a
horrible
world.
Is it we're watching it with hope or something?
we're looking for hope. You know, even when something dreadful happens, like, you know, even thinking back to when Madeleine McCann went missing, we watched with hope. Every day the hope diminished, obviously, but we watched and go,
And yeah, I just thought of something there. You know when you BBC or Sky are reporting on an earthquake where there's thousands of people dead, and then for 1 hour of the news they're focused on one story of them digging and finding a dog. And
or
that,
the baby that was found in the Turkish Syrian one. That was incredible.
So,
you know,
and it's not that it doesn't matter that thousands died and they found a baby, because that doesn't make sense. You're right. It's because it gives hope, doesn't it?
It does, and it's also we watch these things. We never had this rolling news before when we were growing up. That's what people say. Oh, life was different. Life was better back then. We just didn't know. It wasn't better.
No, you wouldn't have had camera crews on the scene. It wouldn't have been all over social media. You had two newspapers.
Sky News weren't there, you know, for 24 hours a day showing you the. I mean, when something happens, I think Sky News just wet themselves because, oh, thank God, there's something to report on, and they're there like showing you the same crap over and over again. Like when the Queen died, must have seen her death about 25 million times. Have you been
watching this story? Have you been following this story?
To be honest, it passed me by a little bit. I was working away and I hadn't been watching. I just didn't have the news on because I was busy. And then somebody said about it. I went, oh God, what's that? And then I started looking into it and I said, jeepers, that's just mental. You know,
Padraig says it's an ego trip gone wrong because these people, of course, paid a humongous amount of money to go down there. I don't know what the attraction is, by the way. It's quite morbid.
To say they did it because I think Pádraig is right in that respect because you and I, Pádraig, the vast majority, I would probably say nearly 100% of people listening tonight will never be able to afford to do something like that. Personally, I wouldn't want to. I value my life. But these guys, if it hadn't gone wrong, imagine the bragging rights of the golf club for these billionaires. Well, I've seen the Titanic. You will never see the Titanic.
But you know what? It doesn't make any sense to me because I can watch it on the Discovery Channel, right? And it's beautiful scenes in the Discovery Channel when you watch, those pictures of Titanic because they send the submarine down with the cameras, the 4K cameras on it, and all that kind of carry on, right? They're going to watch, and they're watching it in a submarine through a dirty glass window. So realistically, they're not seeing it any better than I can see it on the Discovery Channel. So I don't understand the attraction.
I think sometimes when you're mega, mega rich, there's an element of boredom in your life because you've done everything. There's nothing you can't do. Like for me and you, for example, I don't know Pádraig's circumstances, but I'm sure
he's not minted. He's got a few quid. He's not minted.
For us, you know, if we got the chance to say do a 5-star holiday in a fabulous resort, say in the Maldives, we'd be so bloody excited. I know I would.
Yeah.
But these people, they could do that on a Tuesday and be back on the Thursday and go to Australia on the Friday. Their life is a constant need to do more because I just think they're very bored. Because you watch some of these programs with the mega rich and they're constantly striving for the next thing because they've done everything else. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't mind being bored with a bit of money, but their lives, although they have everything, they seem quite empty because they're constantly trying to fill their lives. Like these men, I don't know these men, I'm just speaking on their behalf, I shouldn't really, but you get the impression that it was just the next thing to do. Because it was either probably toss a coin, that or space. Where will we go today? Because they can.
Pádraig, I do get that. I do understand that, Pádraig, that aspect, that we're not these rich people, so we don't know what their lives are like. But if you're filthy rich and you have more money than sense, there's no ambition left in your life. So doing bonkers stuff like this just comes with the territory.
Exactly, Niall. But it's like I said at the previous junction, Niall, it's all about the thrill of the chase. It's a bit like the old Del Boy programs from years ago, the old sitcom that basically he was kind of tongue-in-cheek, but he said basically he became a millionaire fictitiously, and he said but he was happier when he was ducking and diving, and because then he became a millionaire, and he didn't enjoy it, but he enjoyed being broke and ducking and diving. And you remember, I think it was last year now, the CEO of Amazon, he went to space.
That's right, yeah. Jeff Bezos, yeah.
he looks a bit like a spacer, but anyway, kind of that.
Yeah.
But he look, a lot of his.
But they're all doing it. You know, Elon Musk is doing it. Richard Branson is doing it. They all want to go to space.
Exactly.
It's like an obsession.
But the correlation, the comparison, Niall, if you want to go there with the that migrant ship, I think it's sunk off Greece there last week. There was a good few migrants on it. They were from obviously the Third World Brigade. They were poor people, and it wasn't wall-to-wall coverage like these 5 rich individuals. It is wall-to-wall, Niall. So,
and this is the point I was making. No matter what you think of immigration and what your feeling or your opinion is, that's kind of irrelevant. They're still human beings, and it didn't get the coverage this got. You're right. It got an hour, maybe, over the whole day, it might have got an hour Neve on the news that, people had drowned in the Mediterranean.
And we're not given the chance to care. It's not that we don't care. We're not given the chance. How can you care about something you're not told?
Is it just a case of, this has been happening for the last 5 or 6 years, and look, it's just another 50 drowned, so what's the big deal? And I don't mean that genuinely, but is that just the way the news works? That this is a new story. There's a different story.
I think life is very cheap. I think that it's almost like, when you're in a country that's, say, at war or there's problems with terrorism, you become immune to hearing about it. We became immune in this country. Although it was horrible when another person was killed up the north, it was almost like a headline. Because we've become so used to hearing it, unfortunately. And I think we're getting used to hearing about that too.
Yeah, sorry, Patrick. Yeah.
I was just wondering, would it like to be a fly on the wall, Niall, as regards, obviously these people were told the risks. I don't know what the percentage was. Was it 20%? Was it 40%? That is a big risk. I mean, they were told that, but they still decided to go down there, Niall.
They had to sign, or they signed a declaration. To say that
I appreciate.
If you died, you can't sue.
If you died, you can't sue.
Redundant.
Well, I'm assuming with all these things, like go to space, it's a 50-50 chance that you're not coming back. Well, stay there a second. Let me go to Marion as well. Sorry, Marion, how are you doing? You're on Ireland's Classics Radio. Hi, Marion.
Yeah, hi, Niall.
Marion, is there something wrong with the way we're treating this story?
Yeah, there is, Niall. It's just, I was listening to Morning Ireland this morning. I rarely listen to it. I just happened to turn it on. And the first word was, one fella is a billionaire, the other people rich, and so a billionaire, why does the word billionaire have to be brought into it all the time? So we have a duty, because these people are so rich that they want to take this risk. Then there was an Irish journalist on who works for Channel 4. So he said he's out in Tunisia at the moment. Mm-hmm. And he said that there's boats or ships every day coming into Tunisia. And he said that it's not even covered on the local news. And he said it's just, it's so unfair. It's like the haves and the have-nots. And Europe is supposed to be giving money to try and stop or sort out. But yet this story is getting so much coverage. He said that it's just totally disingenuous. It's like as if these people don't matter whatsoever. And
is it because poor people don't matter?
Well, yeah.
Or is it because, as Niamh says too, the story is just intriguing?
I know, but Europe are getting money now to try and sort out this problem, and they just don't seem to be doing it. He's out there doing a job. He's been doing it a long time, and he said even when the local newspapers in Tunisia are not even picking up, reporting it. And getting back to this situation, I mean, it takes 2.5 hours to get down there, and 2.5 hours to come back up. Now, they heard noise. Now, an expert said today on Morning Ireland, he said, hearing noise, there's many noises in the ocean, down there. So, everybody is saying, oh, there's a noise. People are just getting overexcited about everything.
I know, I'm reading online people saying the noise was the SOS. But by the way, I asked the same question a few minutes ago to Patrick.
It's got entangled, Niall. Probably if it's got entangled, the amount of equipment that they could send down, that mightn't even do it to try and untangle this if it's
That's if they can find it. That's if they can find it in the first place.
Yeah, and I just fear now that, they're saying they're counting down the hours, and I just won't even listen to Sky News now because it's just, they're counting down the hours. It's like as if we're obliged just because these are so rich and they've gone down there because it's like having a toy to them. They knew that there was a risk.
Massive
and using
risk. Yeah.
a PlayStation thing for controlling. They're lying on their sides, 5 of them inside in this, and there's very little room inside in it.
I can't imagine what that would be like. Where where the CEO or the founder of the exhibition, Stockton Rush, he's the British millionaire as well, by the way, Hamish Harding. The people in charge are saying to the other people, listen, there's a 99% chance here you're going to die, so just prepare yourself.
Yeah, but they just wanted to do this for the thrill of it, like that's money taking over, and these people,
By the way, so just before I go into the break, Niamh, Marion, they're saying, well, hang on, both of you. They're saying the noise, a lot of people have said the noise is the SOS. Okay, and I'm just wondering, if either of you were down below in that submarine and somebody said to you, there's a hammer, bang on the wall, but you need to bang the SOS, would you know what to do?
I know the Morse code first.
You know...
Yeah, but now you can hardly move in it. So.
Sorry, one at a time. Sorry, what did you say, Niamh?
The Morse code for SOS is ... But
no, you're wrong.
I don't know how to bang it.
Okay, do you know what it is, Marion?
No, Niall, but all I know is that I'm listening to people saying that at this stage they're lying on their sides, they can hardly move, and like what will get them is the carbon monoxide that will be gone into it.
Yeah, of course. I got to go into a break. Niamh, stay with me as well. By the way, for those who don't know, here's a lesson for you for what SOS is. I'll do it after the break, actually.
Ireland's Classic Hits Radio.
All right, just getting back to what we were talking about, and Marion and Niamh are still with us. Sorry, Niamh, you got your SOS wrong there. By the way, for those who don't know, SOS means, of course, save our souls. That's where the original term comes from, save our souls. And unfortunately, if you did Niamh's SOS, you'll be left there. You're not going to be rescued. Sorry, Niamh, you're not getting rescued. But the proper way to do it, if you were in a submersible and you did have a hammer and you had to bang on a metal wall to try and get attention from some sonic detector up above, SOS would be similar to this. I've got a tin can here and just a little stick, so I'll do with that. Would be so that's it. Some people have been texting it. I've never seen so many texts of people guessing what SOS is. Most of you are getting it wrong. This is basic stuff. It's like, you should learn this to the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts or the Girl Guides or whatever it is you learn these things in. Because, you never know when you might be in danger and you might just be able to get a signal out. That's SOS. It's dit 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 da 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 dit 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 or dit 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 dash 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 dit dit dit. 3 dits, 3 dashes, and 3 dits. Now, Niamh, you've learned something today.
Yeah, but that's what we were told was, we were always in the Scouts, right? We were told the Morse code, which is exactly what you said. It's if you were doing it on the thing, right? 3 dots, 3 dashes, 3 dots.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's the
right.
same as you. So it's bang, bang, bang. So it's 3 dots, 3 dashes, 3 dots.
Yeah.
So you hit it. I think it's short, long, short, or something. I don't know. It's
3 short ones, 3 long ones. 3 short ones, 3 long ones, 3 short ones. Hey.
Very long time since I was in the school. So I've probably forgotten.
Well, Marion's learned as well now. We all know now. If we're ever trapped in
Thanks for telling me that.
Yeah, well, if you're ever trapped in a submersible somewhere and you need to make that noise. Sorry, John, how you doing? You're on Ireland's Classic Hits Radio.
Good evening, Niall. How are you keeping?
Good.
I just listened to the programme there, and I've watched the Titanic movies and everything else over the years. But tonight we're talking about the 5 people and in the submersible missing and how much money they have, and we're comparing it to the poor unfortunates that the last, I don't know how many years, have been dying every summer, either in the English Channel or the Mediterranean, trying to get a better life. But it's not to do with money. To me, I think it's the media. These people are missing, so there's a story there.
Yeah.
They're not dead yet. Where it kind of comes into the people's minds, they could be saved. So we get interested in the fact that this could turn out to be great. Or, like when you hear that 500 people or whatever get drowned, unfortunately, on a boat in the Mediterranean. You don't know who they are. You know, they're God. You know, you say God loved them, but this is a different type of story. This is people who spent, I suppose, hundreds of thousands of euros, whether they have or not. They've gone down. They've taken on a challenge. Now, we don't know. I don't know anything about them. Maybe their grandparents or their great-grandparents are on the Titanic. We don't know anything about them. We just know
Judging from their nationalities, I doubt that. And I'm not sorry. I don't want to sound racist or anything, but judging by their nationalities, I doubt their parents or relations were on it. I don't think there was any. I don't think there was any Pakistani people on the Titanic.
Maybe they're thrill seeking or whatever.
Well, that's what it is. Yeah. But you know what's sick about this? Well, I tell you something here, right? So they've just announced a new documentary on the missing submersible is set to air this week on Wednesday. Variety reported that a new documentary is scheduled to air on the UK broadcaster Channel 5 on Thursday at 7 o'clock. It's an ITM production and documentary, and it'll be called Titanic Sub Lost at Sea, and will be presented by the local host Dan Walker. It's a story about 5 people, all with families, who are trapped at the bottom of the ocean. And they're making a documentary about it already, and it's not even completed. Do you understand what I'm saying? Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's about money, Niall. It's about money, and it's about the media making money. And they've clamped onto this story about these 5 individuals, and they're not dead yet. When they're dead, or if they, God forbid, if they
die, sure, it'll be yesterday's news then the following day, won't it?
Yeah.
No, it differs from about Boris anyway.
Sorry, say it again, Marion.
It differs from Boris all his antics.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Well, I believe Boris is now going to be
back, Niall.
He is. He's going to be right. He's writing for the Daily Mail or something, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Of all, the Daily Mail would never give up slagging him all the time. Now they've given him a job.
He has to know because he's having another child.
Researcher.
Yeah.
But I said to a researcher, did they ever hear of a rope or years ago the first submarines that went down, they had a wire cable and they had a near line on them.
Yeah, an umbilical cord, it was called, yeah.
The umbilical cord. And they went down to the Titanic back in 1984 or whenever they found it. But now they seem to think that these new SUVs that have batteries, we don't know, but the whole thing could have just imploded and just,
Good, yeah.
The water pressure down there is like phenomenal,
Yeah, I've had more and more.
The cold, Niall. The cold.
I've heard more and more people suggest, well, that water would be absolutely freezing, by the way.
Freezing it is.
Yeah.
Freezing. They say that.
Well, you wouldn't worry about the cold so much because if the water got in, you were going to be crushed into a little pea-sized.
Yes, of course.
The pressure is. But anyways, so what can we do? We can just wish the best for them and for everybody else.
What I said earlier on to the expert we were talking to earlier on, and what I said to him was, he was saying there's a possibility, a strong possibility, it's already come to the surface, because these things would be designed in an emergency to automatically come to the surface. But he said that doesn't mean we're going to find it. He said because it's like a needle in a haystack, as everybody has said, even if it's on the surface. I said, wouldn't it be terrible thinking that this thing, I don't know, broke down in the middle of the ocean under the water, and then all of a sudden they managed to get to the surface. They went, whoo, we're at the surface now. We can look out the window, we can open the door and look out, and but there's no one around. And you die that way. I don't know which is worse.
I would down 2,000 feet.
You'd rather die on the surface? Is that what you said?
Yeah, at least you could ring Deliveroo or something.
I don't think you'd be able to ring in Deliveroo in the middle of the ocean somewhere 700 miles from the coast. Well, look, it's an intriguing story. Just I got to go to a break. Remember that, Niamh, by the way. Did. Okay, remember that, okay.
If I'm ever in trouble, I'll remember it.
If you're ever in a submersible with a hammer and a metal wall,
if I win the lotto, the Euro Millions, you and me, if we're going down to the Titanic.
It's intriguing, isn't it? I was just looking at Sky News there, and a guy called Andrew Lobley, who was on the original, or one of the original people who went down in this submersible, and he talks about how dangerous it was, how awful it was, and that it's just. He said it's not. He actually said it's not safe. And there's photographs of when he was there. And it's like the inside of, like a water boiler or something like that. Your water boiler for your tank at home, for your hot water, the immersion. It's like the inside of that, just like these cylindrical walls. And he said you can't even sit down. You kind of have to lie against the side with your feet like in a crab position for 12 hours. It's like 2.5 hours down, 3 hours down there, 2.5 hours back up again. And then you sit and wait to be rescued and all that kind of carry on. He said he said it was cold because it's 4 degrees in the water outside. And there's obviously no heating. It's not like they have a radiator on the wall or anything like that. So he said it's freezing cold, it's uncomfortable, it's horrendous. And he didn't figure it was even worth it. It's bizarre, isn't it, why somebody would want to do it in the first place. Anyway, getting back to our callers and why we believe this is getting so much attention. And, you know, a lot of people are saying, well, why is it getting so much attention? Is it because they're not dead yet? And they're likely to be, because they reckon their oxygen will run out. Experts have now said the oxygen should run out by about 12 o'clock midday tomorrow, probably Irish time. Or I'm not too sure, that could be American time as well. Let me go to Maureen. Maureen, how are you doing? Maureen. Oh, unfortunately, we don't have Maureen there. Is Martin there?
Hi, Niall. How are you? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, we'll try and get them back again, unfortunately. Unfortunately, neither one of them could really hear me there for some reason. We'll get them back. Okay. But it is a shocking experience for anybody to be in that situation. And as you heard during the break there, a friend of one of the people who was down there at the moment, and this is Hamish Harding, said he will be the life and soul of the party. He'll keep the spirits up. He'll keep people going. And he probably will, in fairness. You know, I mean, I'm sure they'll have to do something, because whoever's in charge, which I'm assuming is Stockton Rush, who is the Ocean Gate expedition expert that brought them down there, the CEO and founder of this particular organisation. Why you'd want to send people down there is beyond me. But, you know, he will have explained to them, I imagine, being brutally honest, listen, we're going to die. You know, there's a minuscule chance, a tiny little chance that we might actually survive this. But the chances are we're going to die. We're all going to die. So, anyway, it does seem like they're going to die. And I suppose is there a morbid attraction? It's like people who read crime magazines and crime novels. There's a kind of morbid attraction, isn't there? With people who, you know... Anyway, sorry, Maureen. I do apologise.
That's okay. You know.
Go ahead, Maureen.
What were you saying to me? That it's getting a lot of coverage?
Is it getting more coverage than it deserves when you consider that no matter what your opinion on immigration is, that hundreds of people die in the Mediterranean every single day. They drown, you know, fleeing war, whatever it is, looking for a better life, whatever word you want to use for it. And yet we don't see that in the telly all the time. You know, it's like...
No.
It gets 10 minutes on the news if we're lucky.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. What it is it's getting a lot of coverage, all right, definitely. Look, I wasn't really following it. I just heard... The first I heard what they said was a submarine missing. That's the first report was out, and I was going, a submarine is missing? Okay. And then I heard a submersible. But, so they're down there. What are they there? Are they 4 miles? How many miles down are they?
Well,
beneath the ocean?
12,500 feet. So it's about 7 miles. It's 7 miles.
Yeah. 7 miles, right. You're right down the ocean floor.
Yeah.
Now, there's another theory that it's after getting stuck somewhere in the wreck.
It could have.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you see, do you know the billionaire on board?
Yeah, well, I'm assuming they're all millionaires, by the way.
Yeah, but no, this fella, he's a world-famous explorer.
That's right, yeah, Hamish Harding.
Yeah. But he sent a text to his friend before they went down saying that the weather is bad. But they went anyway. Right? They knew the weather was bad. It was like they shouldn't be going down, but they went down anyway.
But you would imagine the weather wouldn't matter if you're going under the water. The weather wouldn't.
Well, it would. If you're on the sea in very choppy water, you're sailing. It's not nice. So you can imagine what it's like down below. Because that's what happened when they hit the Titanic. You see, with the iceberg, they didn't realise it was double
but if you're under the water,
you don't. It's reckless. It's reckless.
Yeah.
Actually, to do it. But I don't know. I just find it strange that all of a sudden it was missing and they lost contact with it, and you know, like banging. You were saying they were banging, heard banging sounds coming.
Hang on.
Strange.
I find the banging thing is a bit weird. I'll tell you why, right? The banging was reported by the US Coast Guard, who flew over the area in a plane. Now,
Right,
I find it a bit bizarre that in a plane flying over at, I don't know, a couple of 100 miles an hour, you can hear banging from somebody who's supposedly in a capsule or a submersible, shall I say, possibly 4 or 5 miles under the ocean. I just don't see how that's even possible.
It's not possible.
No.
And even
I think somebody's fantasizing, to be honest with you there.
Yeah. But even the depth that they're right down on the ocean floor, of course, right?
Well, that's if
Even
they
a
are.
ship
They may not be on the ocean floor. They may be on the surface.
Well, they're probably near. Well, if they were right down there, they were down there. If they're supposedly caught in the wreck, they are down there. But the problem is, you won't even hear that banging that you were talking about. Like, this is quite a big submersible, if you see the picture of it. A ship on the top of the ocean is going to hear banging. Never mind the plane flying over, so that doesn't wash with me at all. That's nonsense.
And here's the thing. I was thinking, right? Let's say some sonar gadget they have figures out exactly where they are. And they go, right, we know where they are. There's 5 miles or 6 miles down at this particular point. That's exactly where they are there now.
Yeah.
How are they going to get down to them?
Well, look.
How are they going to get them back?
Exactly, but they had one submersible that went down.
Yeah.
They must have another submersible that can do the same thing. So instead of flopping and flapping around on the ocean, top of it, or up in the sky, launch a submersible and get down there and have a look. Or get as near as you can, have a look. You might be able to figure something out. I don't know how they're going to get it up. I really don't know. But
they don't have much time left. They need to figure out something fairly fast.
No. Once the oxygen runs out, that's it.
It's all over.
They're gone. It's all over. But like this business of hearing banging and we're listening, get a submersible, go down. They've done it before.
But they're spending a ridiculous amount of money on this rescue worldwide. And by the way, look, of course people's lives are worth money. I'm not saying it's not. But... is it fair for people to analogize and say, well, why are we doing this? Why are we focusing so much on these 4 people? Is it because they're rich and the people that die in the Mediterranean are poor and nobody cares? What is it? Is it because they're rich we're intrigued?
Well, I would go with the rich part because, these people are just, they have so much money, like they don't know what to do with it. So the best thing to do is spend it going exploring, which is a good thing too if you want to do that. But, why were they down there? What were they looking for? What was the business of going there? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, look, it's a graveyard, Niall.
Yeah.
There's 1,503 souls down there.
Yeah.
Leave them alone, is my opinion. Keep away from it.
Yeah, somebody sent in a text and said they have a special gadget which is like a winch and it attaches itself to the craft and can winch it up to the surface if they can find out where it is.
Yeah, but I mean...
Yeah.
Sure, they know where they are. They know exactly where they were going.
Well, that's what I thought when I spoke to the guy from Belfast University earlier on. But he reckons no, it could have, because of the current under the sea, if the power went, which I believe, according to Sky News tonight, when they spoke to somebody who'd already been on this craft going back a few years ago, on numerous occasions his trip was cancelled because of malfunction. It had gone down and had to come back up again because the batteries went.
Right.
So, and he said it just isn't safe.
No,
why did he go on it if it wasn't safe? I just if he realised at the time, why didn't he come out before now and say it? Why is he only saying it now? It wasn't safe.
What should they? Are you saying, look, the people on it will probably do the same, but look, I look at these people and I call them thrill seekers,
We'll stay there because Martin, how you doing, Martin? You're on Ireland's Classic Hits Radio. How you doing, Martin? I've never seen so many texts and calls about something. People are intrigued by this, Martin.
Yeah, well, just if I could very quickly, Niall, on the technical end, just Samuel Morse would be spinning in his grave for the signal you tried to send out there.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I do apologise.
No, just, in case anyone was to take that, the SOS, all Morse is based not so much on the interval between the signals, but on the duration of the signal. So ... if you can imagine what a flashlight would be 3 very quick flashes.
Yeah.
And then a dash would be a flash that's at least twice the duration of
but if you're doing it with noise to make noise.
If you're doing it with noise, the very same rules apply. So if I was in that situation,
give me a demonstration. Give me a demonstration, Martin.
Okay.
Tap your phone. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to do it with the car horn.
Do it with the car horn. Do it with the car horn.
Okay.
Yeah, that's well and good. You've got a car horn there, but if you've only got a hammer, against a wall.
But the point is, with modern technology, the plane that went over, they weren't sticking their head out the window and listening. They were dropping sonar buoys, active sonar, not active, passive sonar buoys into the water, which listens. Okay. So if I was trying to send that signal, what I would be doing if I had a hammer I'd be strike, dot, dot, dot. In other words, 3 bangs, and then scrape the hammer along the metal 3 times, and then bang the hammer 3 times. Do you understand?
Does my method not suffice? Because it's,
Well, what I got from your method was dot, 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 dot. So it was a fast S, a slow S, and a fast S. Anyway, I digress. Look,
okay, go on.
It's just to clarify that. But as I said, the thing about the plane, they can actually listen, but that noise could be just background noise from anything, another wreck somewhere where, the currents are moving things around. But this thing about them possibly being on the surface, if they are on the surface, I would honestly have expected that if they spent all that money developing and building this craft, they would have a satellite phone.
Mm-hmm.
So if they were on the surface, I would expect them to be using a satellite phone, in which case their exact location to within meters, actually to within a meter could be plotted. There would be no problem finding them. If they were on the surface, I would expect they'd have a satellite phone. If they don't have a satellite phone, it just shows you how absolutely, how careless the people that were running these trips are.
And satellite phones, by the way, are dirt cheap. When I compare some to where years ago, they're actually dirt cheap. You can buy a satellite phone now for 500 quid. I know people who go on expeditions who buy satellite phones. And actually, the latest iPhone and the latest Apple Watch is equipped to pick up satellites and to send an SOS signal.
I don't use Apple, but anyway, the point I was making there is that if with the money they spent on building this craft, I'd be amazed if they didn't have a satellite phone. So
And here's the thing, Martin. Okay, you know a little bit about the technology involved, and I said it to Hamish earlier. I wasn't not Hamish. Sorry, who I was speaking to. And to Wasif Naeem, who was from Queen's University earlier on, who's very familiar with all this. And I asked him, okay, fair enough, you can't pick up a satellite signal because you're possibly 4 kilometres under the water.
Not under water.
Yeah.
No.
But surely there's some way of communicating. Surely radio transmission, which is the oldest type of transmission in the world, surely shortwave, I don't know, surely there's some way of transmitting under the water.
Well, no, actually underwater you need very long wave technology. That's why submarines string cables that are miles long behind them. Now, the best way to do it is actually with sound. So it would mean, to have an underwater speaker outside, which you can use either voice or use Morse or whatever else. But the substantive issue that you're discussing, I do agree. I think was it Niamh mentioned earlier on about what's not being covered while this is being covered.
Yes,
in the media.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
there's all kinds of things going on. I haven't heard. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't really been following it, but I haven't been hearing a great deal about Ukraine. And when it comes to the value of life. You have tragic situations where you have, literally millions of people have streamed across the American border. Now we have our own problems here, and all life to me, all human life, is extremely valuable. But you have a situation where millions of people streaming across the American border since Biden, and I'm not getting political here. I'm just making a point of the way things are. Millions of people streaming across the border. And children being trafficked, tens of thousands of children being trafficked for
nefarious reasons, yes, absolutely,
and all kinds of things,
yeah.
And nothing being done about it. Absolutely nothing being done about it. And it's. I mean, you'd have to be living with your head in the sand not to know that this is going on. So there is a dichotomy in the way people value.
But is that our fault? But is it our fault in the way we consume news?
it's not our fault in insofar as we can't do anything directly about it. But
But no, what I'm saying is, is it our fault that it's human behaviour in the types of news? Look, the news channels are only providing news they believe we're excited by, believe that we're interested in, believe that we're sad about, believe that it makes us angry, that drives an emotion in us, so we'll watch more of it. So the news stations don't dictate what we listen to. We dictate what we listen to. And I'll give you...
I don't know about that.
No, hang on. I'll give you an example, right? When I do a story here on the radio about a dog and somebody that's been nasty to a dog, right? We get more reaction than if I had somebody on saying they were sexually abused. And I'm not lying to you, and that's a dreadful thing to say. But we get more reaction by text, by calls, by everything else. That doesn't make sense. But it makes sense to me. It kind of hits an emotion with people. So here you have, it doesn't matter how many people are crossing the border in America. It doesn't matter how many people are drowning in the Mediterranean. It's an intriguing story that there's 4 people with more money than sense gone down in a thing that's probably no bigger than your immersion, crammed into this little thing, but it's 4 or 5 meters long, crammed into this little thing, floating around in the middle, underwater in the middle of the ocean somewhere. And will they survive or will they not? And the clock is ticking and it's exciting. And is that what drives this?
I think it's intrigue that drives it, but I understand what you're saying about, people will respond more to a dog being abused than a child in some circumstances.
Yes.
But I think that has to do with conditioning and saturation, if you know what I mean, in the media. In that, I'm 63 years of age, and I can tell you the media now, mass media now, or the legacy media, call it whatever you like, and I'm not including you or your program. You know my opinion on this is one of the, this is how I end my day, is listening to your program and when the opportunity arises to take part. Because we've lost that in the media. There are so many so-called journalists who are journalists in name only. All they're interested in is, column inches or putting the report on the television or whatever else. They don't really chase and get after the story. And that's why, when I hear something like this going on, I'm always wondering, what are they not reporting? What is this is a convenient thing to fill those minutes or those hours or those whatever else in the media when other things are going on. Now, that's not to say that I don't have all the compassion in the world for the people involved and their families. Personally, I think their chances of survival are extremely low because apart from the oxygen, as we mentioned earlier on, the temperature at that depth is incredibly low. Absolutely, it's so low.
Andrew Lubley, who was on Sky News there about 10 minutes ago, and I just watched it during the break, he said it was freezing. He said it was very, very cold inside. He said it was about 4 degrees, right? Well, mind you, I think that may have been a misprint because it was very cold. I imagine it's probably lower than 4 degrees, but however. And he also stated that there's nowhere to sit. You can't stand in it. He said you're kind of lying against this curved wall at the side. There's a photograph of the inside of it, and it genuinely looks like if you saw a cross-section of your boiler in your house. That's exactly what it looks like. And he said you're lying against, kind of leaning against the side of it with your legs in a crab-like position. And he said you're like that for 12 hours. And why would you want to do that? And he said when he went, they told him that firstly they did a trial run or a test run down a couple of 100 feet or whatever it was. The batteries went and they had to bring it back up again. Then they tried it again and something else went wrong. And he said, eventually, we went down. But he said, I genuinely was worried that we're never going to make it to the surface again. But he said, look, I didn't fear because I'm reasonably fearless. And he said, if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. You're going to do something like that. You kind of know the risk attached to it. But he said his final closing words to Sky News was, when they asked him, he said, it isn't safe. He said, I'm surprised they're still doing it. So it's bizarre.
Personally, I'm risk averse. I'm a very careful driver. I avoid risks wherever possible. I think everyone should do that. Everybody should be intelligent about the things they do. I personally, if someone was to turn around tomorrow and give me a gift voucher to go parachuting or skydiving, I'd say, thanks very much, take it back and give the money as a charity.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
There is no reason in the world to jump out of a perfectly good aircraft. There's nothing, for me, there is no reason to do that.
The perfectly good aircraft is equipped to land again with you in it.
Yes, and I'm not making light of the situation. The point I'm trying to make is, you know, these people, yes, they had the money to do it. It was also their decision. They weren't driven by circumstance to take.
Yeah, it wasn't a life or death decision. Yeah,
exactly.
It's a luxury.
Exactly. So, you know, where I've all the compassion in the world for them. You know, where it's the old expression, you know, where fools rush in.
I mean, it wouldn't. That's right. Myself and Jane were talking about this earlier on. She said, "Would you do it?" And I said, "Absolutely not." I said, "There's no way I'm going to climb Everest, or I'm not going to jump out of a plane, or I'm not going to." I said, "I wouldn't even go skiing because I know people who've gone skiing and broken a limb." I said, "I've no interest in doing things." I said, "I go on a roller coaster. That's a bit of crack." I said, "You know, but I've no interest in doing something that's going to put my life at risk. Why would I do that? Life's short enough. I just wouldn't be interested."
Well, as I think I've said before, and leaving aside our age, I think, you know, if we were the same age, we could have been twins separated at birth because our points of view on nearly everything run so parallel. But as I said, on the substantive issue of the value of one life over another, I value all human life from the moment of conception to the moment of death. You know?
I mean, sorry, Maureen, are you still there?
Yeah,
sorry, Maureen.
I am.
Maureen, are you a risk taker?
No.
So if I gave you a free ticket to, say, go to space tomorrow with Elon Musk or something like that, I don't know, would you go?
Not at all. I'd ask you very daft. I wouldn't dream of it.
No, and I don't.
Not a hope.
But maybe Niamh was right earlier on, and I suppose, Martin, we don't really understand because we're not multi-billionaires or millionaires. When you see Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or Richard Branson, you know, wanting to go to space, you know, which is a 50-50 chance of not coming back again. I mean, it is boredom because they've achieved everything. They have enough money to do whatever they want, Martin. So it's, you know, what's the next thing they can do? You know, there's nothing left for them to do.
Well, no, you see, you said whatever they want. I can guarantee you, it's not just highly unlikely. It's never going to happen. I'm never going to become a multimillionaire or a billionaire.
Unless you win the lottery.
If I did, you know, the old story: if you're not in, you can't win. So you can't win. But if somehow I would like my legacy to be, yes, obviously take care of my family, my children, my grandchildren, all that. But I would like my legacy to be that in 100 years' time, people look back and say, look what he did with what he had. He distributed it. He used it for causes that benefited people, not for this, you know, this self-gratifying. And I'm not making light of the situation these people are in. Personally, I think there's very little chance they're going to be recovered.
No,
but you know, I'm not making light of it. But honestly, I can guarantee you, and I mean this sincerely, if I had that kind of money, I'd be looking more to, you know, what's my legacy? What am I leaving behind me? What have I done with that? Have I just accumulated that and lived a life of complete nonsense? On top of that, then, something that was mentioned earlier on by one of your contributors, I can't remember, was one of the ladies. The idea of going down to the Titanic, it's not just like a graveyard. It's, you know, it's in an alien environment. It's something that was so tragic with so many deaths. To me, it should be like a war grave. You know, it should be like where if a battleship goes down, you're not allowed to go in and for just to be a tourist, to go around and kind of, oh yeah, this happened there, and look at that. Isn't that fascinating? And no, leave it alone. These, you know.
But I don't understand the logic. Yeah. Sorry, Maureen. I was saying earlier on, Maureen, too. I don't understand the logic. I watched the Titanic documentary, you know, whatever it was, Saving Titanic or Raising Titanic or whatever the hell it was called, and it was like it was recorded in 4K cameras, the best quality you could get of the submersible going around, and they showed you comparisons of what it looked like before it sank, and there's the bit now and under the water, and that was intriguing to watch. It was interesting. interesting to watch, but a bit eerie. But in saying that, why would I want to go down in a little box or this little container and look through a dirty, muggy window at exactly the same thing I could see on television, perfectly clear? I just don't understand the logic of it.
I don't understand
Just
the
to say you
logic of
did
it.
it.
Until I made the comment. I do. To me, to me, it's a graveyard, and I should be left alone. Because there was talk about what they actually wanted to do, where they were trying to raise the Titanic. That's not going to be possible because it's going to split apart anyway. I think leave it alone.
That was an idea. That was around the time of James Cameron, and that was an idea that they had of raising the Titanic going back about 20 years ago. That was a bonkers idea, and it was it was a disgusting idea, to be honest with you.
Of course it was. It was, yeah.
What were they going to do? Put it in a museum somewhere or something?
Yeah,
like
but
that?
they're going down in these little things, and look, they know the risk they're taking. I mean, they're going down on this like. It's not they have any way of sending off a distress flare. I mean, if they want to do things, they need to get into the technological side of things and, find every way possible that we can get a signal out that we're stuck or we're trapped. It's not like you're on land because you can navigate by the stars and that kind of thing. And the Morse code, like
you
did earlier on, you will get away with it if you understand Morse code. If you understand it, you will be able to get a signal out. My father was a flyer in the World War II and a navigator, and he was a wireless operator and a navigator. He flew in the Lancaster.
Yeah.
And he did all night raids. And he taught me Morse code when he was trying to teach it to me.
Yeah.
But he also taught me how to follow the North Star and to navigate by the stars if I was ever lost.
Yeah.
So he gave me a very healthy education growing up, and I learned from him.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't have been a risk taker. He was a risk taker. He flew in the war, but that was his job. But like me, he wouldn't be a risk taker doing that. Like he'd find it intriguing, like you and I would. But I don't.
But
think
here's the
going
other thing,
down there.
and that Martin mentioned earlier on as well. Just on that note as well, Shahzada Dawood, he's a Pakistani man, a multimillionaire businessman, and he took his 19-year-old son Suleiman.
Oh yes. Yeah.
And I'm going, what sort of reckless, irresponsible thing was that to do? To in a situation where it's life or death, it's a 50-50 chance. You have to sign a waiver before you even go. There's a good chance you're not going to make it. What sort of silly thing is that to do to bring your son with you? I mean, if you want to take your own life or you want to risk your own life, far away, shoot. But to bring your kid, and there's a picture of the two of them there, and I'm looking at it here on Sky News. It's like he's a kid.
I saw the picture.
Yeah, he looks about 17. Yeah, sorry, Martin.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Maureen. I would say, in fairness to this man, he's probably lived a life where his money and his wealth insulates him from a lot of the dangers and, vicissitudes of the world. Yeah. And when you have a person like that, they don't have a grasp on reality. And when I say reality, I mean particularly physical realities. The fact is, when you're down that deep, the sea in the first place, once you get out above waist depth into the sea, you're in an alien environment. But when you're at that depth...
I understand that. When I go into the sea myself, if I go beyond waist deep, I'm kind of going, okay, that's enough.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the old boys always swim parallel to the shore,
Yeah,
which I do.
Yeah.
I enjoy a swim, but I certainly wouldn't go deep water swimming or anything like that because I say I'm risk averse. Because I've seen tragedies in the world. I've lived a reasonably long life so far. I've seen the tragedies in the world that can befall people, but I do think, in fairness to that man, he's probably had a life where his money has insulated him from adversity.
Yeah, I get
you.
And
he just didn't realise that in these circumstances, his money means nothing.
But see, I was also thinking earlier on about the way we're looking at the story and the intrigue in the story. And I mentioned as well that ITV Productions have already stated that on Channel 5 at 7:30 on Thursday night, there's a documentary on called Lost at Sea or something. They've already made a documentary about it. The thing hasn't even come to a conclusion yet, and they're making documentaries. Anyway, like I talked about, you will have an earthquake somewhere in the world, or a tsunami, for example, or whatever it happens to be. I don't know, a bomb goes off and thousands of people are killed and thousands of buildings are destroyed and people are buried under the rubble, and Sky News will be covering it. And they'll spend an hour of the Sky News while, tens of thousands of people are dead, dying in hospitals, focusing on a story about, a whole rescue team pulling rubble up because they hear a dog barking. And then they save the dog and everybody's, oh my God, the dog is saved. And I'm going, okay, that's really cute and that's nice, but 10,000 people are dead. And I just find that human interest in that type of story, I find it bizarre. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I know what
maybe
you mean.
Maybe I'm not explaining it properly. I just...
No, I think you are explaining
it. They pull on the heartstrings as well. It's the emotion that's attached to it. And the mainstream media say they're doing that. It's just all this emotional stuff, and it's actually what I call a distraction away from the real things that are happening in the world and the real things they should be focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I view it as.
Yeah, I agree entirely.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is a real story. There are, these people have families, etc., etc. And I wish them well. But like Martin, I don't hold out much hope for them being found. As most of the experts have said, it is like looking for a needle in a haystack. But look, it's an interesting conversation. And for people who ever get in a situation like that, trapped. Maureen, you mentioned, of course, the North Star. Most people wouldn't know how to do that. Navigate
by the North Star. Follow the North Star. Right? That's what you do. But you see, I suppose I learned it from my father, who taught me. Because as a child, he would have me at the door and he'd be pointing at all the constellations. And he'd be telling me how you'd navigate by the stars. And that's fine when you're on land if you can do that. That's grand, because you have a navigation system to get yourself from A to B. But under the sea, you are screwed.
I mean, as we all know, hundreds of refugees died when a boat collapsed during the week in the Mediterranean.
That's right. I hardly covered it all.
Hardly covered it all. And not a penny spent. Yeah. There's been millions spent on this. Millions.
Yeah, there has. Yeah, there has. Yeah, because you have a group of, I call it, I hope they're found, but time is running out. They're thrill seekers, and they do this for the thrill, and they have the money to do it. And that's a lot of people that live their life by thrill seeking.
Well, hang on. Derry Ann is not too happy. Jeepers. Derry Ann.
No,
what's
I'm
wrong
not
with you?
Happy with it. I tell you what's wrong with me. All I can hear is judge, when 5 human beings are in such a position, and none of us know what any of their lives are like unless we walk 3 miles in their shoes. And it just breaks my heart, because all their families are at home. And we can't judge, we don't know where they came from. You alluded to the fact that there wouldn't have been Pakistanis on the Titanic. Well, if you look back into your history, the Taylor, the ship, which was the sister ship of the Titanic that went off,
the Lusitania. Was it?
No. Taylor that crashed into Lambay Island, and all the women and children, practically them all, died. There were black people on that because they were the staff. Now, just because they might have been staff back then doesn't mean that they haven't, that their relatives haven't got their lives together. But anyway, I just feel, my point really is, I feel extremely sad, and I feel, stop judging these people for...
But I wasn't. Well, I want to be 100% clear. I wasn't judging anybody because they were Pakistani. And as I said from the very start... the very start, it's irrelevant, what colour somebody's skin is. We should care about people and human life. And I was making that point about people in the Mediterranean, that people in the Mediterranean are dying. I'm saying, do we care more about people when they're rich than we do about when they're poor?
No, Niall. It's a human thing that and this is how media works. Like 5 guys who just happen to have the money go down there. The 19-year-old, we don't know what his life's about, but they happen to have the money. So what? But the big thing is, we have to, if all the world is focused on them, and this is proven scientifically, if the whole world is sending them healing energy, they could be saved. And instead of us judging them and
I don't think anybody's judging them. I think more so Martin, Maureen and Niamh and everybody else. I think we're judging the media and the way the media responds to things like this.
No, I've heard for the last few minutes, they're thrill seekers. They have the money.
They are. That's exactly what they are. But they were not
Darianne.
judging. But they were not judging them.
Darianne.
Yeah.
May I just say, look, we all live a life, and the decisions we make have consequences. Now, I'm not judging the people for the decisions that they've made, but sometimes decisions have serious consequences, and if you don't sit down and really analyse what the potential consequences are, you know, I have all the sympathy and all the best wishes in the world for the people involved, but people make bad decisions, whether it be taking drugs or you know, driving recklessly or whatever else. There are all kinds of things that happen to people because of decisions they've made. Now, some people make decisions based on, I can make that decision because I have the ability, I have the money, I have the time, I have whatever. On the other hand, other people are forced into making decisions because of circumstance. And that's the substantive issue that was being discussed tonight. I don't wish any...
I know, and I've heard you say that very clearly, but what I've been hearing is judgment.
But I suppose the only level of judgment I would make is why, and I'm looking at a photograph here, right, and BBC are reporting this now, right, and this is true. To control the submersible was a $30 Xbox controller. There's a picture of it here in the submersible, the guy holding it and another guy laughing as if to say, really, is that controlling it? It's literally a Logitech F710 wireless Xbox controller to steer this thing. And I'm telling you now, Darianne, if somebody said to me, I'm going to take you 6 miles under the sea in this steel tube controlled by an Xbox controller, and if anything goes wrong, you're doomed, I am not going. And I value my life more than that.
And that's fine. But what we should be questioning is, who are these guys who took all that money from those people, brought them down there, knowing, like the guy on the Sky News said tonight, it was a joke. Like, you know, we used to joke about Ryanair. They'd be charging for the toilet paper, and you'd get on and you'd be standing up. And he wasn't too far wrong when he said that, because whoever is running that stupid thing have got away with murder, and that is murder, and they should be brought up for murder if those people are found dead.
You know what? I wouldn't actually disagree with you, Martin. I wouldn't disagree with Darianne that if those people die, the company responsible for this should be absolutely liable, because it's saying here, I'm reading more on the BBC as we're all talking here, and the BBC is saying there have been numerous complaints since it was launched back in 2010 about the way this thing was controlled, about the safety standards.
There we go.
But here's the thing, but people still went on it.
No,
you know?
I absolutely agree with Darianne on that point. I mean, but you have to understand, the people involved that went down on this craft knew that there's no oversight body. There's nobody to say, nobody comes in and does inspections on this craft and says, no, I'm sorry, we can't let you go down with that situation. You know, we're not allowing that.
But the people on the Titanic and that other ship I talked about.
Sorry, Darianne, I'm not talking about the people on the Titanic. I'm speaking specifically on this issue. The disclaimer that was signed by each individual that went down, it was quite clearly specified that there's no oversight body. There is no oversight body to say, like, there are oversight bodies for almost everything in life, you know. Yeah, cars have to comply with a particular standard. Hairdryers have to comply with a particular standard. You know, water faucets have to comply with particular standards. But this thing, there was no standard applied. Now, if I was going out on a holiday or going away anywhere, and I arrived out at an aircraft and I found, well, actually, they've changed the tires on this small aircraft and they're using the tires from a car.
Do you think the paperwork was written in that way that those people, come on, whoever is in charge of that, whoever you call it,
Darianne,
they are responsible.
Darianne. What is it, Darianne? Well, if they signed something and they said, written on the paper, for example, was it's at your own risk. Well, then they're
Yeah, but
responsible
that's
for
not
nothing. They're
the
not
point.
responsible. You can't.
That's
But you can't
not the
hold them
point.
responsible.
Listen, hold on.
I know
walked
the point
into
you
a
made.
restaurant.
I know the
No,
point
hold
you
on,
made.
Hold on.
No,
I
I'm
walked
just agreeing with
into
the
a
point you
restaurant.
made.
Can you just hear me? I walked into a restaurant today. I have my 3-year-old grandson. His mother was sitting over with the new baby. I went up to get 2 glasses of water, and while I was standing there, out of nowhere, one of the glasses absolutely exploded. And it happened, one of the shards happened to cut my grandson's tiny little cut in his face. Now, what we did was we made sure that the general manager of the particular place went to the health and safety, looked into the temperature. These glasses were just brought out from a washing machine or a dishwasher. So the company, somebody's responsible for that happening. Now, thankfully, myself and the young lad, we could have been destroyed and ended up in the A&E, but we didn't. So what we did was we tried to make sure that it ain't going to happen again to anybody. And I will say, I'm not going to name them obviously, but the people were brilliant and they are going down that road. Now that could be down to the manufacturer of the dishwasher. But those people going on that ship, if there has been complaints in the last number of years, why haven't that company, and I mean, I'd be the first one to look in and see who that company are and who they are taking $250,000 per person and then getting you to sign, well, we don't have life jackets, we don't have, you wouldn't get on a plane in Dublin if it said, we don't have life jackets, we don't do safety. You just don't do it.
Okay, but listen, I've run out of time. Listen, Derry-Ann, Maureen and Martin, thank you very much indeed. This has gone a lot more time than I actually had planned to give it. And I've only got about 5 minutes left, and I do want to get the opinions of an expert as well in relation to this, because we did talk earlier on. We were talking to Wasif Naeem from Queen's University, and I want to speak to Timothy Healtong Chai, who is from Alberta, and he's a fellow at the Canadian Global Institute and PhD in Naval and Maritime Strategy, and he also joins me in this. Good afternoon to you, or good evening. I'm not too sure what time it is in Alberta, by the way. So good evening, or nice of you to join us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Well, I'm all the way on the other side of the pond.
So what is I'm assuming you're watching this and following this, and you probably know a lot more than most of us in relation to the technicalities of this. Where are they at right now, and is there any hope whatsoever?
So I think the biggest sign of there being some hope was the recent revelation that they heard some banging sounds apparently once every 30 minutes detected by one of the sonobuoys, which are, kind of like passive sensors that one of our Canadian aircraft, anti-submarine aircraft, dropped into the water. And so, because it's every 30 minutes, they know that it's something that is artificial. Mm-hmm. It's not just the submersible being caught up in, say, some rogue fishing nets that's just banging around. So, that gives us some hope that they're still alive down there, that the structure is still intact. And that there's still, of course, some hours left.
So from that sonic buoy, can they detect how far away from the sonic buoy the submersible may be, or could that be hundreds of miles, or does that narrow it down to like a 4 or 5 mile radius, or how does that work?
I think it'll be somewhere around in the order of, several dozen miles or kilometers, because the ocean is made of very many layers of water. So there are different temperature layers that really dictate how far and, in what way the sound travels. And so you can't just assume that just because you hear something at a certain level that it is exactly from this particular distance. And especially case for something like this, where it's probably just the guys inside banging on the inside of the hull with, their Xbox controller. And, you don't know how loud a sound that makes and how deep they are. You don't know because of that, how far the sound traveled before they reach the sonobuoy.
Yeah, and this is the thing that surprises everybody. Of course, BBC and Sky News over here reporting, that this, and I've seen some of the photographs, it is literally controlled by a $30 Xbox controller. And it looks like the most basic submersible I have ever seen. And they spoke to a recent passenger, and there's photographs, and it's horrendous looking. It's like the inside of a hot water boiler tank. There's nowhere to sit, nowhere to lie. You kind of lean against these curved walls with your legs in a crab-like position for 12 hours, and it's less than 4 degrees. It's freezing cold, and somebody's sitting there with looks like an iPad screen and a controller. I mean, why would you want to put yourself in that situation? It's bonkers.
right? Because I guess it's just that there's so few other options out there for, the so-called intrepid and I would say, overly burdened with wealth to actually go for an opportunity to do something like this. Most oftentimes you need to be an actual researcher, an actual academic with an actual purpose to go down there to do something like this using one of the research submersibles, which are, of course, actually rated by national and international agencies to make sure that they have to meet international standards for safety. Something like this, they signed that waiver at the beginning saying this is an experimental thing. It's like, yeah, no kidding. But then it comes down to a point, well, yeah, sure, people are allowed to build whatever they want, but perhaps, at some point we need to ask ourselves, countries of the world, that maybe we should regulate these things too, because, yeah, sure, they operate only international waters, and so that gives them some leeway, a loophole, as it were, but maybe, that really shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's all well and good if you're doing this for research purposes and it's experimental, et cetera, but when you're starting to sell tickets to tourists, essentially, rich tourists, then you have a bit more responsibility because these are inexperienced people who are just going for the thrill, I suppose. I mean, I don't know, you have a PhD in naval and maritime strategy. I'm sure this would interest you. Would you go down in it?
No, I absolutely would not. When I first heard about this, I was like, okay, yeah, so it's probably like a professionally built submersible. There've been, about several dozens of these things built over the last several decades. And, I imagine there'll be plenty of backup systems, a lot of support and everything. And then I looked at that report that CBS did, from the last couple of years back, and I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, absolutely not.
No.
You couldn't pay me enough to go on that thing. Hell no.
No, I just, looking at the photographs, I was actually taken back because I was expecting something more professional, something with money spent on it. But it certainly doesn't look like it's professionally made. It looks like it's been made by somebody in a, some sort of steelwork fitting factory somewhere. But anyway, besides that, what do you think, honestly, the possibility of finding this before, now I don't know if it's our time or your time, tomorrow, midday tomorrow when the oxygen runs out? What do you think the chances are?
I don't think the chances are particularly great. Even if it is something that wants to be found, its object is still fairly small. And, I'm not quite certain because it's really highly classified, but most sonars, I think, work best against, steel objects. And this one is apparently made of carbon fiber for a lot of it. So perhaps, any active sonar that end up using, perhaps it's not reflecting as well as they should. And, apparently the darn thing doesn't even have a distress beacon or a automatic distress system.
That blows my mind, by the way. You would imagine with the money that's being spent and these people are paying, you would imagine that it would have some sort of, as I explained to somebody earlier on, if I lose my phone, I have Find My iPhone. You would imagine it would have some sort of beacon on it of some description.
Yeah, absolutely. Even some sort of like automatic hammer that's like a wind-up clock or something that, just bangs away for a while automatically.
Or something that you can release from the outside that just goes to the surface immediately.
Yeah.
It seems very logical and basic. Or somebody else mentioned a speaker outside that even plays a song or something. I don't know. You'd imagine something. Like it's crazy. But are they 100% sure that it's still intact and still...
Oh, I don't think, they haven't made it clear at all as to what they think the state of the device is. I mean, they can't even locate it. So without doing that, I don't think they can safely say as to whether the thing is
because they're just kind of surmising that it is, I suppose, really, aren't we?
Based on, and I'm just surmising based on the fact they heard the banging from, I don't know how many hours ago now it is, whether it's still happening or not. They're pretty hush-hush about this kind of thing.
Well, look at the millions that's been spent around the world, but people donating stuff. You put value on the people that are trying to do the rescue operation at the moment, and the amount of money that's being spent currently, and the amount of time and effort and other people's lives that are now being put at risk to try and find this thing, I suppose, to some degree. I think that's going to be the end of this kind of carry on and this kind of, I don't know, these kind of little trips down to the bottom of the sea for tourists anyway. I don't think it's going to be happening anymore.
Well, maybe, but, you see, at least with, all the space efforts, SpaceX, whatever, they have a lot of heavy government backing behind it. And so they got a lot of eyes over their shoulders, but for the seas, it's out of mind for them. And a lot of uncertainties, and people can build these things in their backyards. They think it would go down to whatever 100 meters or so, and then, cross their fingers and hope they come back up. But, for, this whole entire search thing really shows just how limited the resources are for anything that goes wrong here. Ships are slow, right? They take days to get to one of these places. And then once they get there, do they have the equipment to find it? A lot of the ships that we send out there Right now, the Coast Guard vessels, well, they're not meant for hunting submarines. They don't have their advanced sonar systems that go down there through the different layers of water to hear things properly, to send out signals properly. They're mostly science vessels, and there's utility to that too. During the science work to make sure you know how the water behaves, especially as climate change is happening. You're not quite sure the water is as warm or as cold as it used to be and where they're supposed to be. So that's still very important stuff to make sure that when you do have a sonar in this area, that it actually works the way you expect it to. But, at the end of the day, you're still limited by what kind of assets you have in the area. And of course, for us, Canada was sent basically the only thing right there that has an underwater detection capability. That was, of course, the aircraft, the CP-140.
Look, we wish them well, and we hope they find them. As you say, you don't hold that much hope. As I said, they've only got about 14 hours of oxygen left now at this stage. You'd imagine this day and age, by the way, they would have something that could produce oxygen reasonably easy, but however, that hasn't been the case. And it's probably five people who know they're going to die, which is probably a shocking experience and shocking way to die, to know that you're going to die and there's nothing you can do about it. But listen, thank you very much indeed. Timothy Hill-Tong Choi, thank you for coming on the air and talking to us tonight, and I really appreciate it.
Real people, real opinions, Real Talk Radio, the multi-award winning Niall Boylan Show.